In a week when scientists apparently taught spinach to send emails, yes, really, people kicked oval-shaped footballs in Tampa, and a man got so drunk that he changed his name by default to Celine Dion, what more would you want from a film podcast than two blokes making Karate Kid audiobooks cool in the year 2021? Hello, wherever you're listening or watching, and welcome to the Rip Ticket Review, a film and TV podcast that believes martial arts are the solution to every problem in life, apparently. My name's TheJackSmit, joining me over the power of the internet is the Pat Morita to my Jackie Chan, Dan Carver.
Hello there.
Slow news week, as you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I've done some terrible things when I'm drunk, but I can at least feel better about myself now, knowing that I've never done anything like that. But fair enough.
It was a chore finding good things for the intro.
Right, you did it right. And yeah, I mean, spinach sending emails, hashtag not the onion. That's a thing. And I honestly legitimately looked now for, the onion are running out of ideas. Wait, what? But yeah, speaking of ideas and running out of ideas, which sort of leads us on to our topic of Karate Kid, it sort of ran out of ideas, really, didn't it?
Yeah, as we discussed last week, the 2010 reboot, it did relatively well at the box office, but the critics didn't like it. People were saying that it was a film that didn't really need to be made. So, understandably,
yeah, exactly.
Sony wanted some kind of way to capitalise on the fact that Karate Kid was a thing. The last couple of years, nostalgia porn, as people call it, has become like a big thing, and it's kind of apt that for the very first time, we're not just live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube for this week, because YouTube's a big part of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. They needed a way forward with Karate Kid, but Sony just didn't have the idea. The idea of just remaking it instead, replacing karate with martial arts, it didn't work. And then in comes serious fans Josh Heald, John Hurwitz, and Hayden Schulzberg. I do believe Hurwitz and Schulzberg were known for a couple of their comedy movies. I didn't manage to find much information about Josh Heald, though, which was weird. He seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. No doubt you'll know more about him than I do. But yeah, Hurwitz and Schulzberg were known for their comedy movies, specifically... let's have a quick look here and see. Yeah, they're Harold and Kumar films and the American Reunion films. And they had the idea, of course, of creating the series Cobra Kai, which asks what did happen after the Karate Kid. What happened after that? You know, what was the story there? Is there any untold story? Because the thing about the third Karate Kid movie was, as unneeded as it was, it kind of ended things there. And the next Karate Kid proved that. And so it was like, well, you don't need to go into it anymore. We know what happened. Daniel and Miyagi live happily ever after. We don't need to know. And the danger with a lot of these nostalgia porn, as you put it, a lot of these nostalgia porn series, danger is they're so busy looking back at what made things awesome that they're not looking forward to see what makes the show awesome, the show that they're currently making awesome.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And importantly, with something like Cobra Kai, the nostalgia porn element is very difficult, considering one of the main reasons that Karate Kid was so successful sadly passed away a few years ago, because people were like, how can you do Karate Kid without Pat Morita?
Yeah, exactly. How can you make a Karate Kid sort of series or movie without Mr. Miyagi? Which is, a fair question. And so what the answer to that was, well, we're not going to make a Karate Kid show. We're going to make a Cobra Kai show, and it's going to be told from the vast majority of it's going to be told from the opinion of a now grown up Johnny Lawrence. Now, on paper, this show is a disaster waiting to happen. Brings the old actors back. It's about, a karate tournament that happened when they were like 18 years old or younger. Younger than that, weren't they? Because they were in high school.
Yeah.
They're like in their when they were 16 or 18 years old. It's about that, what happens after that karate tournament. It's about the revival of the Cobra Kai dojo, because apparently Cobra Kai was the only karate dojo in that area. Nobody's opened up a karate dojo since. And so looking at it, it's just like, this is going to be an absolute disaster. And yet, it's one of the best original series that has been made to date. Premiering on YouTube Red, which was their the paid version of YouTube.
YouTube Premium, long rest in peace, dare I say, because nobody uses it anymore.
Nobody, no, what's no point, is there? And then of course season 2 went on to YouTube Premium, and then it was cancelled after season 3, and Netflix came to the rescue.
Our Lord and Saviour Netflix. Our Lord and Saviour
Netflix came to the rescue with season 3. So it's had 3 seasons. And the thing is, even before season 3 was released, they had confirmed a season 4 as well. That's how good this show is. So, a quick warning, if you've not watched Cobra Kai before, this is a discussion show about it. We're going to be talking about the plot, the characters, all that lot. So if you haven't watched it, stop watching this now. Stop listening to us now. Go watch the show. It's really, really good.
Oh, go 1 week I don't have the spoiler button on tap ready to go. Go 1 week I don't have it ready.
It's a good thing, because, a lot of people think, they're going to be reviewing it. And it's like, kinda. It's more of a discussion show. We're reviewing things,
I mean, we've done a whole series of this. If you don't know the format by now, go back and watch older episodes. You should. We've done 9-10 episodes of this show now. You should all know how it works.
And hello to all the new people.
Hello to all our new listeners as well, by the way. Sorry, I forgot we brought in new audiences for that +4 episodes.
But Cobra Kai is an utterly brilliant show. It looks back enough to know what makes it great, but it looks forward and it moves forward at an almost brilliant pace. There are a few things that I don't like about the show, but we'll go into it. So the show takes place 34 years after Johnny Lawrence got his head caved in by the crane kick, and he lost the All Valley Karate Tournament. And it seems that the respect he's got for Daniel, he found for Daniel at the end of that movie, seems to have frittered, because he's now in his 50s. He's working as a part-time handyman. He's living in an apartment, and he's really not doing too good at the moment. He's got an ex-wife who he has had a son with, but he's abandoned them both.
Yep.
And Johnny has never recovered from his breakup with Ali with an I.
Who wouldn't recover from a breakup with Ali?
Well, meanwhile, Daniel's son is doing very, very well for himself, it seems. He is running his own dealership, LaRusso Cars. He's doing very, very well. He's kicking the competition, as he likes to say. And he's got a wife and 2 children, one of which annoys me really much. I don't know why that he's in the show. I don't know. The kid's not comedy relief, but he's doing really, really well. One day, Johnny and Daniel's paths meet when Daniel's daughter, unbeknownst to Johnny at the time, because he doesn't know who she is, crashes into Johnny's car with her drunk friends, and Johnny has to go to the Daniel's car dealership to try and get a repair job. And seeing him so successful, doing so well, opens up those wounds for Johnny, and Johnny's thinking to himself, what can I do to get back on top? And he decides to open up Cobra Kai Dojo. And Daniel sees this on his way back, has a PTSD flashback of it, all the times that Cobra Kai was nasty, and decides, no, I can't let this happen. And essentially, the story's development primarily revolves around Daniel and Johnny's inability to move away from the past. I mean, where do we even start? There's so much to talk about.
I mean, from what I've seen of those first, because the first 2 episodes you can watch for free on YouTube. Nice little plug. We tweeted a link to the first episode earlier on in the week. What I loved about those first 2 episodes is the way that it actually crosses the story together. You see it from both perspectives, which is one of the things that this show seems to do incredibly well. Is give elements of the Karate Kid new life nearly 30 years on, and that's what you want from a nostalgia show like this. You don't just want to rehash the past, you want to do new stuff with it. And I think that's where the show really does start to excel. The moment where Dan sees the new Cobra Kai, you hear, "Ain't that a kick in the head?" and you see the flashback sequence of what Cobra Kai did to him back in the day. That was a very well executed sequence in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, shows have a danger of looking back at the past and not looking forward, but Cobra Kai looks forward enough to bring us some new characters in season 1, which we can all... Which I have to say, the characters in season 1 are in all of Cobra Kai are absolutely brilliant. But of course, the big thing about Daniel and Johnny is they're played by their original actors.
Yep.
What a gift that must be if you're an original actor to be told you're going to be revisiting this character that has made you, that helped make you to who your Hollywood icon. So that helps make I'm losing.
It's a bit like Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves being asked to do another Bill and Ted film.
Yes, very much so. Sorry, I completely lost the ability to speak then. I think I was geeking out. But yeah, it's the ability to come back to that character and breathe new life into it for a new... What a gift that must be. And it's not just Ralph Macchio and William Zabka that come back as Daniel and Johnny. You've got Martin Cove as John Kreese comes back as well.
In his 70s. In his 70s, he's back.
70s as well. Yeah, Martin Cove comes back. Ali with an Eye comes back as well. Elizabeth Shue. What else we've got here as well? We've got some archival footage as well of Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi, so he does appear in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Kumiko comes back in season 3, which I was so happy for. But it's the new characters that help propel this show forward, because of course Johnny meets Miguel, and Miguel Diaz, who's played by Zolo Maranduena, is the Daniel LaRusso of this generation.
Yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things I love about this show, is that it goes, right, this time, the Daniel LaRusso, the kind-hearted character, is going to be trained by the hothead, the brutal teacher.
Yeah,
and
it's like a proper role reversal.
It is, yes. So Miguel is kind of like the Daniel LaRusso of this generation in that he is the fish out of water. He hangs out with his friends, but he's bullied, and he wants to learn karate to better defend himself. And so Johnny says, "Right, I'll teach you Cobra Kai karate." And the relationship between Miguel and Johnny becomes, at first, teacher and student, and it all culminates in this brilliant, cheesy fight scene where Miguel not only beats up the school bully, but beats up everyone that tries to help the school bully in the canteen as well. And we watch, and the thing is, again, it's the whole underdog story. We can relate to Miguel the same way that we all can relate to Daniel in The Karate Kid. We can relate to that. Who doesn't want to learn martial arts to beat up their bullies? I would do it if I could take the chance up if I was a kid.
I probably would as well.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. And so you watch as Johnny imparts his life lessons onto Miguel about Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai never dies, strike first, strike hard, no mercy. And the relationship between Miguel and Johnny deepens. But then we see something really, really interesting, and we see that Miguel is becoming corrupted very slowly because of Johnny's teachings. He almost becomes as bad as the bully himself.
Yeah, bit like what happens to Dan for most of Karate Kid 3. He realises that the corruption has got to his head a little bit, and he has to fight to prove his honour.
Well, here's the thing, though. Miguel doesn't realise the corruption gets to his head, though. He has to be pulled back by Johnny, who realises, actually, the whole Cobra Kai thing, the whole way I was taught Cobra Kai obviously isn't correct, but we'll put a pin onto that point, And we'll talk about my favorite character as well, which is Eli Moskowitz, better known as Hawk. Hawk is brilliant. I mean, he's this quiet, shy, sensitive victim of cyberbullying because he has a cleft lip surgery scar. And he goes in to learn karate. Johnny pokes at him and calls him lip. And then he gives him his life lesson. He says, look, people are going to bully you because of this. It's a very honest piece of advice. It's like, look, people are going to pick on you because of this. I'm sorry, they are. You've got to be the one to flip the script. And so Eli grows out a mohawk in a ridiculously short amount of time and becomes Hawk. And he has that brutal tattoo of a hawk on his back as well. And he becomes the most savage and brutal Cobra Kai member. And I love the character of Hawk. I really do. Because much like Miguel, we can relate to Hawk. But in a sense, Miguel and Hawk go on similar journeys, but Hawk is like the bad side of what could happen if somebody becomes this cocky, savage so-and-so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Letting the power go to the head a little bit too much. What happens when you have all the ego bubble up over multiple years and trying to take it out on the people who you really want to take it out on? Hawk seems like a person you really don't want to mess with. Like many people I've encountered in pubs in and around Preston back when pubs were open.
Yeah, back a long time ago. So that's pretty much the two major characters of Cobra Kai. And then, of course, you've got the two major characters of Miyagi-Do, which are Robbie Keane, who is Johnny's son, and Samantha LaRusso, who is Daniel's daughter.
Wife.
And
a daughter, yeah.
Daughter, Samantha.
Yeah.
Yep. But where are we going with this? Yeah. So Robbie undergoes a lot of character development. He is the Johnny of this universe in that he is brash, he's cocky. In this universe, he commits crimes. And so he ends up working for Daniel. The first time we meet Robbie, we can tell he's smart, we can tell he's calculating because he tricks someone into handing their laptop over. Sounds convincing, sounds the part. Turns out he's a thief, and he's just going to pawn the laptop over. And then he finds out that my dad hates Dan LaRusso, so I'm going to get a job there. And then the two meet. The two being Robbie and Daniel. They both meet up, and before we know it, Daniel is teaching Robbie Miyagi-Do karate, not knowing that Robbie is, of course, Johnny's son. And he becomes Daniel's star pupil, learning the Miyagi kick. He becomes an unknowing weapon in a sense, because Daniel's unable to deal with moving on from the past. And so when Daniel finds out that Robbie is the son of Johnny Lawrence, Daniel goes, right, get out, I don't want anything to do with you, meaning that Robbie has to go solo for a bit. But watching Robbie become this sort of zen-like, mature person, it's got to be some of my favourite character development as well.
To have that arc go through season 1 and then series 2, he actually moves in with the LaRusso family. You can tell that there's a proper redemption story here. And that's ultimately what the first Karate Kid boiled down to, was a man trying to redeem himself in front of the people who brought him down for years and years and years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also finding balance as well, finding balance in one's life. Using karate as a means not just to attack, but as a means to balance oneself. And we also have Samantha LaRusso as well. Now, I don't think she gets as much attention as of the other characters. I don't think her development is as good as the others. We know, for example, that she's a very popular school student, one of the popular girls, but she's also, a student of karate from years back with Daniel. And that's pretty much, she doesn't, I don't think she gets as much character development. I think she's the weak link in all of Cobra Kai. Because I would have loved to see more of her as this popular airhead, you know, brushing away the nerds, that sort of thing,
Mm.
slowly learning her lessons, kind of like Cordelia from Buffy.
Yeah.
She's a much, much weaker version of that trope. Which is a real shame because, well, these things do happen. When it comes to when it comes to these series, I've blabbered on a lot, but yeah, season 1 is mostly about Daniel and Johnny, their inability to
Their inability to move on from the
balance,
past, yeah.
which leads to conflicts, and it leads to them facing each other in the All Valley Karate Championships via their students.
Mm. Nice little way to bring it all full circle, really. Having those championships 34 years on, having the two men who hated each other back in the day come back to face each other without them realising it. That's one of the key things of the series, is they like to take things from the original films. I mean, there is a moment in Series 3 when we get a reunion between Johnny, Dan, and Ali with an eye, and it's like a beat-for-beat recreation of the scene where we're at the dinner together, whereas this time it's Johnny getting his ass kicked in the kitchen rather than Dan. It's taking it binary oppositions. That's what we were taught at college. These binary opposites to the original films. That is what Cobra Kai seems to really excel upon. And obviously, with it being a YouTube original, obviously not quite as violent as the films were. Standards have changed, and they're only half-hour episodes, so nice, short, concise. Can binge it all in a very quick amount of time. 71 million people can't be wrong.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, so. We've talked a lot about Johnny and how he's been a failure, and how he's trying to get back to Cobra Kai, because these characters have their internal struggles as well, and they always try to avoid these internal struggles until it's far too late. We also get to see what happens with Daniel as well. Daniel LaRusso, he's met someone new in his life, Amanda LaRusso, played by Courtney Henniger, and the two of them seem happily married. Although for Daniel, he finds it very, very difficult to bond with Miguel in a manner that resembles... Sorry, not Miguel, his son. Oh no, my mind's gone blank. Trying to think of who's Daniel's second son is called. Antonio, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm like triple checking everything now. Recurring... It's not going to come to me either.
No, that is... I'll have a look and see. Anthony LaRusso, who is... let's have a quick look. Yeah, I was close. It was... it's Anthony. But yeah, Daniel is struggling to connect with his son Anthony. He's living the wealthy lifestyle he's envied as a kid when he lived in Reseda. But with his mentor, past Mr. Miyagi, who passed away, he's struggling to meaningfully connect with any of his children, and that's disrupted the balance in his life. So it's, again, we're getting to see that although Daniel has done very, very well for himself, he does have his issues still. And of course, when he sees Cobra Kai, he back up on the game, he straight away dagger eyes towards Cobra Kai as he attempts to blame Cobra Kai for everything wrong in his life. It's absolutely immense. So we also have other students as well. We have Nicole Brown, who plays Aisha Robinson, Sam's childhood best friend who decides to join Cobra Kai. We don't get to know much about Aisha Robinson.
No.
Which is a bit of a shame, really. I can see why she was written out, because her character really didn't contribute too much.
I think that character was there more to get the exposition of this new take on the Miyagi-verse up and running, give you a little bit of backstory, a bit more sort of ideas of where Cobra Kai has gone, the more athletic kind of karate that Johnny seems to be pursuing, the whole strike first, strike hard. We do know that she's the daughter of quite a famous American footballer within this particular universe. Again, quite topical considering the Super Bowl was last night. We know she's from quite a wealthy family, but again, it's got disparity. You have these two men wanting to bring the best that they can do, and it's kind of reflecting the students that they can get, and obviously written out in series 3 kind of tells you everything you need to know about the character. It's 2 seasons and done. Fair.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, one of the things that I really love about the Karate Kid is it leans into what made it special. And one of the things that we talked about in the Karate Kids last week were the fight scenes. The fight scenes weren't flashy. There was no obvious wire work. No, apart from the crane kick, no majorly unrealistic things like, for example, Once Upon a Time in China, the no shadow kick, Jet Li, that sort of thing. It was very grounded fighting, and it remains the same here in the Cobra Kai series. The fighting in this series is so grounded and so realistic looking, and I think it honestly works better for it when we watch the Miguel beating up the school bullies. There's no flashy flips and skydiving kicks. It's all realistic, and I love that.
Yeah,
I love that a lot.
you can tell that a lot of thought has been put into the choreography of the fight sequences in this particular show. It's because people know. Well, back then when it was on YouTube, people were thinking, "How are we going to watch a show like this on smartphones, on tablets? We got to make it as gritty as we can in the little half-hour time window that we've got for each episode." And I think with the way these scenes are choreographed, it is fitting of the Cobra Kai approach. It is fitting a Karate Kid approach, and it keeps up that lineage of having people who know how to treat these characters well, having people who know how to treat these actors. Bearing in mind, there are moments where you realise, oh my god, these dudes are in their 50s and they are still... So most of it is them. But it's credit to the way that they put this show together, because you just still feel that they want to make this as realistic as they can. It's almost... If Christopher Nolan was to do a karate film, it would rival this in terms of realism and doing everything on camera.
Yeah. Although I don't know about it, because Christopher Nolan struggles with fight scenes, man.
And sound levels.
And sound levels and speech. But yeah, I think that the fight scenes, like you said, they help ground this down as well and make it sound, because one of the things that helps Cobra Kai is that it takes itself seriously to the point where, I mean, you can tell that the three the three creators of this, Josh Hill, John Hurwitz, and Hayden Schulzberg, they were big fans of the Karate Kid. They
would have loved the films.
Story. They love the films indeed, because it's an underdog story. It's something that you can connect to. And another thing I really like about this as well, what really helps, is that because we see this all from Johnny's point of view, we get to delve into Johnny's backstory, something that the films didn't do.
It was like a big enigma over the 30 years between the film coming out and this series. We didn't really know that much about Johnny, because we didn't see much of him aside from that first film.
Yeah, and there was sort of the sense that he was a little bit more complex than the archetypal school bully. Especially at the ending when he says, "You're all right, LaRusso," and hands him the trophy. It's like, hang on a minute, that's not something a bully would do. There's a lot of unanswered questions there. And we find out, of course, that Johnny is the stepson of a rich kid, and that his stepfather just keeps throwing money at him when it's needed, doesn't love him at all, doesn't care for him. And we find out that actually Cobra Kai is a lot more than a dojo to Johnny. It is a big part of his life. And that actually the relationship between Johnny and Miguel is somewhat similar to the whole relationship between Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. Yeah. In that Mr. Miyagi had the same relationship we had with Daniel, because we found out that obviously Mr. Miyagi, in a very powerful scene in the Karate Kid, which really separated his character from being the stereotypical Japanese karate master, we find out that obviously Mr. Miyagi, his wife and son were killed in an internment camp. where she gave birth to his son, but because there was no one there to help her because she was Japanese, and in the American internment camps, if you read the history, there's a lot of racism in that history, a lot of prejudice towards Japanese because of World War II. Nobody helped Mr. Miyagi's wife. She bled out. The child died soon after, and it's very, very sad, and it causes Mr. Miyagi a lot of depression until he sees Daniel and he realizes, actually, I can impart my lessons on this child. I see a lot of potential in this child. That I can help mold. And the relationship between Daniel and Mr. Miyagi goes from student to teacher to almost surrogate father to surrogate son. And the same can be said with Johnny and Miguel. And in fact, it's actually outright implied in the season 3, I think, which we'll go to later, where Johnny realizes, actually, I can be this guiding force that I didn't have. At first, Johnny tries to teach Miguel in a similar manner to how Kreese teaches him, strike hard, strike fast, no mercy. It works. And it works to the point that when they get to the All Valley Karate Championship, that Miguel versus Johnny's son, Robbie. Sorry, my throat's getting very dry from all the speaking. From Miguel versus Robbie. Robbie is fighting on his own because at this point Daniel has disowned him, until Daniel takes him back in the finals and said, look, I'm really impressed with what you did out there. You can fight under Miyagi-Do. We see that Miguel resorts to, I guess you would say, dishonorable tactics.
Just like Johnny did back in 84.
Indeed, because you see in the fight scene, we see that Eli, who was transformed into Hawk with his confidence, had injured Robbie with an illegal move and hurt his shoulder, which Miguel presses for in the tournament. He keeps pressing against the shoulder, pushing the attack, and eventually, in a move which no doubt stunned a lot of people and made people realize, wow, this thing's here to stay, Cobra Kai wins the All Valley Championship for that year. And Johnny realizes, oh my God, I've corrupted my students the same way that I was corrupted. And season 1 ends on a bit of a cliffhanger where Johnny is at his dojo getting drunk and he sees somebody in the shadows, and it's John Kreese, Martin Cove. And that was a big moment. That was huge. That's when we knew that Cobra Kai was here for to stick the landing.
Yep.
So season 1 was brilliant. It set all these blocks up, and we were all thinking, wow, now that we know what's happened with everybody, what's going to happen in season 2? Well, in season 2, we have a few more characters that have come into the fold. The biggest one, of course, is Tori Nichols, who is played. Let's have a quick look here where my notes gone. I have lost my notes again. Tori Nichols, played by Peyton List.
Peyton List, yes.
Yep, she is the anti. She's the anti Samantha LaRusso, in the sense that she is, meant to be the main female of Cobra Kai.
Yep.
And she is vicious. We learn that she has a few issues at home, and there are hints that are dropped that we get the story, I think, in season 3. But again, I just don't think we get enough character development aimed at Tori. I don't think that there's enough there, but there's enough there to justify her as a character.
Yeah, there's enough there to justify her as a character, much like back when Karate Kid 1, there are again more binary opposites here. She walks into Cobra Kai, she introduces herself as Tori with a Y. You can tell where the influence for that came from. Like Ali back in 84, I wonder if it'll take another 30 years to get the 3rd season of another reboot show of something like Cobra Kai to get more of a Tori backstory when you realise, oh yeah, this is how it could have played out. But yeah, she likes her dirty tactics. She turns against Johnny towards the end of Series 2, and importantly, she is one of the female characters who seems to know what she's doing within this new interpretation, let's say, of the Miyagi-verse.
Yeah, definitely. So in season 2, we learn more about what happened to John Kreese after Karate Kid 3. We know that we learn that he's been on hard times and that he wants back in with Cobra Kai because John Kreese, of course, made Cobra Kai.
And he
Cobra
wanted
Kai
to
is nothing
expand
without
it
John
big
Kreese.
time in Karate Kid 3, but certainly LaRusso got in the way.
He did, yes, and so there's that revenge plot as well. And in season 2, it's more about the characters settling into their roles. We find out more about Robbie, and we find out about what his home life is like and how bad it is. We get to see Daniel setting up his own dojo called the Miyagi Dojo,
Nice little
which doesn't go
callback.
too well. Yep, it doesn't go too well originally because his advertisement gets slated. People believing that he is appropriating Japanese music when he's not. And yeah, it's a great season. It's on par with season 1, definitely. And one of the big things about this season is that, again, we get to see it because it's all told from Johnny's point of view. Johnny realizing that he's corrupting his students. This is where the story now starts to come out onto its own, where it goes, right, we've looked back enough at what made Karate Kid amazing. Now let's look forward, and how do we make this different from the Karate Kid? How do we make it so it's not just another nostalgia porn?
And how do we get a new
And
generation of people watching the original movies?
And the answer to that is Johnny realizing actually Kreese's teachings weren't what Johnny needed to know. Johnny needed to know more about mercy, about when to not attack. And so he tries to teach his students this. The students are a bit confused. Hawk is like, well, you taught us to have no mercy. You taught us to not be afraid. And Johnny's desperately trying to teach people and say, look, he's trying to teach his students, and he's trying to say, look, you got to you need to show mercy to certain people. Kreese, and this is the thing as well that I love about season 2 and season 3, is that Kreese becomes a far more formidable threat than he ever was in the Karate Kid, because he starts to inch his way back in. Johnny is like, no, we're doing this my way, to which Kreese is like, okay, yeah, we're going to train these children your way. But Kreese begins to get inside these kids' heads. We see that Kreese kind of drops the hint that they should attack the Miyagi dojo and completely destroy it, which Cobra Kai students do. And the worst bit about it is they take the Medal of Honor from Mr. Miyagi, that Mr. Miyagi earns. It was Hawk that takes it. And again, it's showing how far down the rabbit hole Hawk is going in terms of becoming just like a bully. We already know that Miguela's gone a little bit down the rabbit hole, where he becomes a bit too overconfident. He starts dating Samantha LaRusso in season 1, but they break up, which causes and he accidentally hits her. It's so we know he's going down that rabbit hole. We were also introduced to another new character as well, and that Cobra Kai gets a new character in the form of Tori. We get one of my favorite characters, I do believe, Dimitri, who is this neurotic kid who is afraid of everything around him, just wants to be left alone with his friends, very nerdy. He is a recurring character in season 1, but we don't see much of him. But in season 2, he attempts to learn karate, but he is much like the neurotic stereotypical nerd. He's afraid of physical contact. He doesn't want to get hurt. He doesn't want to get bullied. He tries to get his way out of it with a sick note, excusing his mum, excusing him from physical activity. Dimitri is a challenge for Daniel, because Daniel is like, well, how do I get through to this child? How do I teach him karate? And it's really, and I love Dimitri because Dimitri is the true underdog, I think, of the series.
Yeah, he sounds it based on a good character arc that he goes through over the 3 series. Because he goes through the whole, I want to try and get back into karate. So he goes to Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai don't want him. Then Dan takes him on out of spite. And then eventually, come series 3, he starts to learn the ways of Miyagi-Do, which is the characters who you really want to root for. And the way they sort of continue this whole theme of this whole theme of these two men trying to get one up on each other. It's a bit like a Prestige in many ways. These two men trying to get one up each other, and the way that they teach their students. You can sort of see that there's some clear parallels between what Miyagi's values were back in the day and what Johnny and Kreese want to do with the Cobra Kai students.
Yeah, and another thing that I really, really enjoyed about Dimitri's arc as well is him and Hawk are friends, but Dimitri leaves a negative review on Cobra Kai, and it causes Hawk to go ballistic. So, of course, Hawk is loyal to Cobra Kai to a fault.
Yep.
And Hawk is like, no, you got to take that review back. And Dimitri's like, no, I'm not taking it back, and it causes that rift. And I love seeing, Hawk is one of my favorite characters because I've said that enough times already, because he is continuously going down that rabbit hole, and we are seeing him
become the next Johnny Lawrence,
becoming the next Johnny Lawrence, and it all comes to a head at the big school brawl where where everyone fights. Now, before we do, I just want to give out a shout out to one character in season 2 who really did my tits in, and I'm glad that they got him out. I'm glad that they wrote him out. I'm, of course, talking about quote unquote Raymond Stingray.
Ooh.
Played by Paul Walter Hauser in season 2. Paul Walter Hauser, he's known for his supporting roles in I, Tonya, in Black Klansman, and in Richard, he had his breakout performance in Richard Jewell as well. So he's a great actor. He's a really great actor.
I mean, I enjoyed I Tonya, but to see him with roles that, as you say, get on people's nerves, that's not a good look. Not a good look at all.
Why was he written in season 2? And his character is just So Johnny meets Stingray. Johnny meets Raymond, the character, in a sort of a Home Depot store where Johnny's looking to repair his dojo, and the two bond over rock music and
showing off the archetype of every heavy metal fan. You're wearing a Metallica t-shirt, and yet you're talking about 1980s heavy metal music.
Yep. And Raymond eventually comes to Cobra Kai. He grows his own beard with a 20, and he calls himself Stingray. And he is one of the most annoying characters. I didn't like anything that Stingray had to offer. And I truly do believe that you could have taken his character out and replaced him with someone else, and it would have just worked fine.
Yep, sounds like he was just there to advance the story on a little bit further.
Yeah, that's all it was. He was so annoying. I'm glad he was written out at season 3. Anyway, season 2 culminates in the school brawl because Tori has seen Miguel kiss Samantha LaRusso whilst they were dating, and she decides, no, not having that. And the whole basically Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do have a brawl in the school, and it is brilliant. I mean, obviously not the kids fighting each other, that's terrible. But
that's terrible, but the actual way the fight scene's executed is big.
The fight scene is brilliant. I mean, it's everything that we love about the fight scenes, in that they're grounded in reality. The choreography is great. Everyone, even Stingray, gets a few hits in, which is really weird because he's meant to be in his 30s and he's attacking teenagers.
Yeah, that's a bit unrealistic.
That. Well, it's such a shocking moment because then we get to see, of course, a rematch in a sense between Robbie and Miguel, and Miguel manages to get Robbie down. But then he remembers his teachings that Johnny said, which was sometimes you just got to have mercy. So he says, do you know what? No more. It's over. Robbie retaliates, kicks Miguel, off the balcony, cripples him with life-threatening injuries, and as a result, everyone blames John Kreese because Kreese is like, "You got to show mercy. It's the right way forward."
That's the show's equivalent of the sweep the leg moment.
Yeah, pretty much. And Kreese finds out that what's happened. He blames himself, and essentially he is ostracized from his own dojo.
Mm.
And John Kreese manages to take over.
Now, it's important to note at this point that we have a big school brawl scene. This is right at the end of Series 2. At this point, nobody within the production of the show knew what the future would like, because this was at the end of their deal with YouTube. It was a 2-series deal. From there, they would have to go through the usual process that all Americans hate of looking for a new network to find the show. So it could, in an alternate universe, that could have been it for Cobra Kai, but the popularity ensured that Netflix picks it up for 2 more series.
Which, yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad they did, because season 3 really takes everything to the next level.
That Netflix money really helped them.
Yeah, season 2 was great. It was wonderful, pushing forward, watching Johnny as he's attempting to find a great way to teach students that isn't as bullying as Cobra Kai. But he was taught, watching John Kreese. Watching John Kreese slither his way in. One of the big plots as well is Johnny discovering Facebook.
Yes.
And getting in contact with Ali with an eye. And then he throws his phone away because he's had enough when he realizes that, Miguel could be injured. And then we move on to season 3, which aired on the 1st of January 2021.
Brought forward by a couple of weeks because everyone was clamouring for the demand, and people were like, "Oh yeah, we've already binged on." Actually, no, Bridgerton came after. People were like binging on everything, and then Netflix said, "Oh yeah, but because you want it, we're going to drop all of season 3 on the same day." And everyone was like, "Right, I'm going to stay up till 4 a.m. so I can binge the whole lot." It was a big moment on January 1st when that new run came out.
Excellent. Jack, do you want to talk about season 3? Because I've talked a lot on my
Right, so season 3, we have got all these story arcs continuing. The Miguel accident, key plot, Johnny's still trying to cope with everything. It is like the ultimate role reversal. He is the one dealing with the consequences of his own actions. Dan is continuing up with Miyagi-Do. Obviously, Kreese is still looming large over this series. The dojo has been lost, but show must go on. And I think for me, one of the strongest things about Series 3 was getting to re-examine the Ali storyline from her perspective. And that was one of the things that Elizabeth Shue complained about back in the day, is that they didn't actually go into detail about exactly why Dan and Ali broke up. And we don't go into detail about exactly what happened between her and Johnny before the events of Karate Kid 1. And that was one of the things that really brought her back into the fold. And she said during the production of the show is that it didn't feel like a day had passed when they got back together on set. It felt like they were making Karate Kid all over again. And one of the things that I think really excelled that particular storyline is it's Ali herself who says, "Look, you're focusing too much on the past. Don't get stuck in the past." And I think that provides you narrative crux going into Series 4. This is when the boys realise, look, we've had these unresolved tensions for 34 years. We still hate each other, but we've got to live with it.
Yeah. And we've got to find a way of putting everything forward. And the thing is, it's not like that Daniel and Johnny haven't tried to work together in the past. In season 3, they worked together in an attempt to find Robbie, who is responsible for Miguel's crippling and steals a van and run from the LaRusso dealership. And so the two of them, Daniel and Johnny, team up. Again, a brilliant fight scene where the two of them have to dispatch some of Robbie's acquaintances from jail. And yeah, but again, it's this whole past that they have that keeps stopping them from work together. And it's only until Ali says, "Look, you two have got to bury the hatchet and move forward," and they have to, because big things are happening. Daniel LaRusso's company is under threat from his competitor. Johnny loses Cobra Kai and realizes he has to set up another dojo called Eagle's Claw or Eagle's Fang, something forgettable. Meanwhile, we're starting to learn more about the background of Kreese, his time in Vietnam, what hardened him into the monster that he is. And we also get a semi-answer to the question, why don't they just go to the police about Kreese? If he's as bad as they say he is, why don't they go to the police? And Daniel's wife tries to go to the police in try and get a restraining order of some sort on Kreese and to shut Cobra Kai down, makes the mistake of slapping Kreese in the face when the two of them have a talk, which means Kreese ends up getting the restraining order on Amanda, making Amanda look like a crazy psycho person. But yeah, Kreese, and again, it's this season, if the last two seasons were about old grudges bleeding in, this season is about rebuilding, what happens when Daniel and Johnny's way of life is threatened, and how do they get it back. And it leads to one of my favorite episodes in the entire show, where Daniel gets to go back to Okinawa.
Yes, a nice little coming full circle moment. You get to go back to Okinawa after Karate Kid 2, which I think we mentioned last week was one of the strongest bits of Karate Kid 2, was actually being able to go over to Japan and see Miyagi's backstory. This is a real moment where we realise, look, this is how far we've come. This is where we're going. This is your roadmap for the future. This is how we do it justice.
Yep. When he travels back to Okinawa, it's completely changed. We learn that in the village, the crops all died out, and so Mr. Sato turns to retail. Rather humorously, as the villager says, "Yeah, we used to have a Subways, but now we have a Jersey Mike," which I looked at another sub company. And Daniel meets his old love, Kimiko. Again, played by the original actress. And oh my God, that scene was what made me go back, and was what made me watch the entire Cobra Kai. It was that scene of Daniel and Kimiko seeing each other again, Kimiko dancing with the students on stage. That was what made me go, right, I'm watching this entire thing now. And I'm glad I did, because it was a brilliant scene. Kimiko is played, like I say, by her original actress. I apologize. I'm trying to think of the name. She was played by Tamlin Tomita.
Yep, Tamlin's back.
And such a brilliant couple of episodes where Daniel comes to Okinawa because he's trying to find some kind of wisdom from Mr. Miyagi of how to move forward. And Kimiko reads him some old letters from Mr. Miyagi. Daniel also meets up with Chozen, who is once again, yes. And at first we think Chozen hasn't changed at all. And he's played again by Yuji Okamoto. We think that Chozen hasn't changed until we learn that actually he has become much like Mr. Miyagi than we could ever realize. It turns out that Chozen became very humble after his defeat, and he teaches Daniel some new tricks about Miyagi-Do, namely pressure points. And again, for Johnny's journey is about, how can he make up to Miguel failing him, and Johnny helps become that. This is where the relationship between Johnny and Miguel turns from student to teacher to father to son.
Yep.
Johnny takes Miguel out to to a heavy metal concert after his training, trying to get him back to walking fails. But the heavy metal concert, he realizes that Miguel's tapping his foot, and Miguel's mother is really happy that Miguel has a father figure in his life, and the two end up sleeping together. That is Johnny and Miguel's mother end up sleeping together, and it's just like, what on earth? Johnny may have found some happiness in his life for once. But all of this is, of course, threatened when Cobra Kai becomes far more brutal and ups their attacks on Miyagi-Do, where Kreese instructs his students to go to Daniel's house to beat up the Miyagi-Do students that are there. And it is at that point that Hawk realizes that he may be on the wrong side, because earlier in the series we see him break Dimitri's arm in a fight. It's repercussion for Dimitri beating Hawk in the school brawl. Dimitri realizes, actually, this is wrong. All of it's wrong. It has to stop. And he switches sides to Miyagi-Do, and we see Hawk and Dimitri attack, defend each other and attack. It's a brilliant piece of choreography.
I know.
I cheered.
They do say that the best defense is more offense, and that's really what the mantra for this third series. Because everything that just seems to work with the fight sequences in Series 1, Series 2, they upped it to 11, knowing that they don't have the limitations of YouTube's terms of service, which are ridiculous enough as they are. They can go full-blown with Netflix now, and it worked in this show's favour. The redemption arc comes to a head, and ultimately we get the moment that fans have wanted for over 40 years now. We get to see Dan and Johnny, right at the end of the series, finally working to train students together.
They do indeed. When Daniel goes back to... Johnny goes back to the Cobra Kai dojo, realizing that Kreese has corrupted his son, Robbie. And now Robbie is Cobra Kai until he dies. And I predict that Robbie will be in a relationship with the female student of Cobra Kai, whose name I've completely forgotten. I'm terrible at this.
Well, we've not podcasted for 10 months until this, Dan. You're more than fine.
Yeah. I think Robbie and Tori are going to be a thing, definitely. But Robbie realizes that, he's Cobra Kai now. He tries to attack his father, who easily dispatches him. In a fight between Johnny and Kreese, where Kreese has the upper hand, Daniel comes back. The two of them work together to fight against Kreese. It is then that Kreese says, hang on a minute, let's settle this the old-fashioned way in a tournament, and like you say, the two main characters, Daniel and Johnny, realize they have to bury the hatchet to work together. And they end up creating a brand new dojo, which so far has no name.
And that'll probably be the focus of Series 4.
It will be the so what's going to happen in Series 4? I think in Series 4, these two characters, Daniel and Johnny, are going to end up having to work out their issues, and we're going to see a lot of conflict. But I think Season 4 is going to be the best season out of all of it. Yeah,
now that they've got the backing of Netflix, and they've got what was at the time until Bridgerton came out a few weeks ago, one of the highest performing debuts on the service. 71 million households watched Cobra Kai in its first week when the new run came out. Netflix will want to keep it around for a few seasons at least before ultimately cancelling it at the show's peak, because they do that to everything on there nowadays. So just like, yeah, we'll give you 3 seasons and then you're done. I think Cobra Kai has got some serious potential with the Netflix backing as well. Sony are very happy with how the show is going. The fans have been satisfied. The fan fictions have been cracking as well, because there are Karate Kid fan fictions. That's one of the things that I don't regret reading for the research for these 2 episodes. But I think Karate Kid's been in very good hands. The showrunners know what they're doing with the characters. Robert Mark Kamen can breathe a big sigh of relief knowing that what he started back in 1984 is in very capable hands in terms of how it's all being made, how it's all being produced. The franchise has been redeemed after Karate Kid 3 was a disappointment. Next Karate Kid was an absolute failure. And then, obviously, the 2010 reboot did okay, but not enough to warrant them revisiting that. But I think what they did with going back to the Miyagi-verse, going back to the roots of where this franchise began, getting TV shows out of it, and one of the nice little binary opposites. By the time we get to see Dan and Johnny working together with 3 seasons worth, that is literally by the time we get to that point, it is literally the entire running time of the trilogy combined before we get that moment of them let's do it. Let's set up the dojo together and take on Kreese. And that is I see big things for the show going forward. I really do. And if that last season was anything to go by, you're right when thinking that this next series will be the best one yet.
It's going to be absolutely brilliant. And I'm really glad that we got Cobra Kai. I'm really glad because what makes it brilliant is the fact that the three creators treated it with respect. They remembered what made it brilliant, but they also remembered that there was a lot of uncharted ground to cover as well. And that's the direction that they went in. They didn't bring back characters like Ali or Chosen or Kamiko or Daniel or Johnny just for the lols. There's never been an episode where any of these characters have been wasted. None of the old characters have. We even get a little bit of Daniel's mum, for God's sakes, in season 3, I think. None of these characters were ever wasted when they came back. Yes, a couple of the characters who came into Cobra Kai, the new characters, were wasted, speaking specifically of Stingray, but they've all been written out. I think what we've got now, season 4, is the perfect set of characters and the perfect cast to create the definitive end to the Karate Kid. I think season 4, personally, I think it could be the last season. And
I reckon that as well, because they've done everything that can be done with this particular storyline now. We've got them working together, and also we've got to bear in mind these guys will they're in their 50s, coming on their 60s. They can't do this forever. This is the thing with these nostalgia porn things, and I had this issue with the last Bill and Ted film when it was in cinemas in September. Getting old, Hollywood needs to move on. We need to start getting the next generation, and I think Cobra Kai is like the best launch pad for that. We've got all these new characters. We've got the Miguel storyline. We've got the Robbie storyline. They're setting this up for a future without Johnny and Dan. And that is where this show is really starting to come into its own, because you wouldn't really want to take a chance on a new Karate Kid film at this moment in time. You want to build on what's already, the foundation that's already been laid. I think this show has been like the best way to do that. So eventually we'll get a new Karate Kid film with the new characters, but right now Cobra Kai is literally the next best thing, and I'm glad we've got it.
Definitely. I think that Cobra Kai, one of the things I'm grateful for Cobra Kai doing is not only treating its source material with enough respect, but with the it treats its source material so what's the word I'm looking for? It treats it with such it knows
such respect.
There's respect, yeah, and then there's another thing where you treat something almost like a religiously good.
Oh yeah,
that it actually makes people want to go back to the Karate Kid movies. And from my research, what I've done, a lot of people have rewatched the Karate Kid and Karate Kid 2 as a result of everything they're seeing, because they want to get involved and they're going back to these movies. And so a whole new generation is finding out what is amazing about the Karate Kid and the Karate Kid 2. That whole underdog story. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, there's going to be a time when we're going to get a Karate Kid movie reboot, remake, because Hollywood loves to do that. The reboot is a great way of recycling old, tired ideas instead of creating something new. But for now, like you said, we've got Cobra Kai. I'm happy with Cobra Kai. I'm really glad I got to watch it in the end. And I'm looking forward to season 4.
Yeah, it is a show that just gets things right on so many levels. It is one of the rare examples of Hollywood actually doing something right. And with that, we have made it to the end of our little 2-part exploration of the Miyagi-verse. I went a lot better than I actually anticipated. I really enjoyed getting into that, because Karate Kid was one of the films that was on the cinema reopening list last time round. Hopefully it's on the reopening list this time round when they get back open in mid-May, from what I'm hearing from within some of the big chains. From here, where we go is nobody's guess. So you'll have to come back every week to watch Rip Ticket Review on Facebook and YouTube. We are, of course, on all major podcast platforms as well. In fact, the podcast will be out in literally an hour from now, because we've got really good turnarounds. Perks is live streaming it on 2 platforms. I don't have to do as much post-production work. What do you want to do next week, then? Because the world is our oyster. We're filming TV.
Yeah, I mean, with WandaVerse being released, and it looks like now Marvel is moving into television, it might be good look at that at the history of superhero movies. I think we can do a lot about the history of superhero movies.
Well, we did superhero movies 101 last time round, but I think if the MCU is really uncharted territory now that WandaVision's doing as well as it is. That might be something I can mention on Talking Smit about film as well, because prep for lots of podcasts. So I think if we go back into the superhero realm next week, feels like the right time with Snyder Cut on the way.
We could also, there's loads we can talk about. I mean, yeah, like you say, with the Snyder Cut. Yes, I remember that. We did do the superhero movies, didn't we? I don't know. What could we talk about? Well, how about, do you know what I'm looking at?
Oh,
I'm looking at RoboCop on my DVD shelf.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Do
yes.
RoboCop.
That'll make a good review as well.
Dun, 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 dun. Yes, I think next week we should definitely look at RoboCop, not just the first one, but let's look at them all, including the TV, into the 4 TV movies that were released as well.
Yes. So join us, same bat time, same bat place, for a look into the world of RoboCop. Feels good to say that. But until then, my name's been TheJackSmit.
And I've been Mr. Carver.
Until next Monday, potentially, we'll see you at the movies.